Let's go through a demo turn. On your turn, you have 8 hours to spend. So turn 1, you'll spend 5 hours, let's say, converting that to money. You get 5 gold. 2 hours volunteering, getting 1 virtue. And then your final hour, pausing and meditating, getting 1 awareness. So you'll end the turn with 5 gold, which I'm gonna spend to complete clothing and shelter. Notice I'm using pennies to cover up the needs because pennies are pretty useless otherwise in life, and we might as well use them for something. And I have a piece of colored paper here to represent the 1 red resource, aka awareness, that I have left over. I'll leave it on the side of my triangle. Time doesn't stay, so if I hadn't spent 1 hour, that's not something I can hold on to. But anything else, awareness, virtue, and gold, I can hold on to it for next turns, for subsequent turns. Now it's my next turn. I'll turn my cards right side up, and I again have 8 hours to spend. So what I'll do is I'll get 5 more gold, which I'll use to complete water and food. And I'll have 2 gold left over from doing that, which I'll keep up here. And then I'll meditate for 1 hour and go back and volunteer again. So this leaves me with a total of 2 awareness, 2 gold, and 2 virtue at the end of 2 turns. And I'll spend this 2 awareness to complete control. Now I have 1 whole row complete. The benefit of having 1 row complete is that I can now play cards that require at least 1 row complete. Several of these cards will say that. For example, the marriage card says requires 1 complete row, and there's a little 1 with a triangle symbol to represent that. So now this card, which otherwise I could have acquired but I couldn't have played, is now playable. That's why you might want to complete 1 whole row. Now, there's 1 special caveat for this area here. It says reset every turn. Food and water are needs that you need to meet again and again. Therefore, even when you pay to complete them 1 turn, the next turn, they are removed. So, you typically only want to complete these needs if you have a card that requires a certain amount of rows complete. For example, at the end of the game, each player is going to try to have as many rows complete as possible because each full row complete is plus 10 points. It spells that out right here on your card. So each row complete is plus 10 victory points. So that is a reason why you might want to spend your 1 and 2 gold, so 3 gold to complete food and water. Otherwise, these 2 here are reset every turn. Now, let's talk about how the game ends. Notice at the very top, there's this final need, self-actualization. That's a need that when you have completed that, the game will end. The first player to complete that is going to be their last turn. Their last turn is the turn in which they complete self-actualization, and then every other player is given 1 final turn to try to complete as many needs as possible, which typically they're trying to complete whole rows so that they can have as many points as possible at the end of the game. They also will be trying to complete as many other quests as possible. Oh, what's this? Quests. Yes. Actualize This has quest cards. These cards represent side quests. For example, Wild Child. This is a side quest that's secret to the person who has acquired this quest card. Their quest here is to complete intimacy, to complete friendship, and to complete family before they have completed control, way down in the first row. If they manage to do that, they reveal the card and they get plus 8 victory points. If at the end of the game they have failed to complete this quest, they get minus 5 victory points. These quest cards are revealed when the game is over and when players are describing their lives, the lives they led in the simulation, and whether or not they have completed their quests. How do you get quests? Well, at the very beginning of the game, each player is given 2 quest cards and can choose to keep as many as they would like of those 2. And during the whole game, one of the remaining starting cards, notice there are 4 cards that are considered the starter pack. The last starter pack card is the Spirit Quest card. A Spirit Quest allows you to spend 6 hours to draw 2 cards from the quest pile. And then you have until your next turn to decide. You get to keep as many as you like. This Spirit Quest you can do as many times as you like. However, keep in mind, it's taking up most of your time for that turn. So it keeps you from doing things such as acquiring gold, awareness, and virtue. So now you have a sense of what the typical flow of a turn of Actualize This looks like. You're out here managing your time, trying to figure out if you want to spend it getting quest cards, getting gold, getting virtue, or getting awareness. But these can't just be the 4 things that your life is made of. No, we have an entire pile of lessons. In Actualize This, there are 4 available lessons that sit in the middle of the table that are there for you at all times to acquire. Well, you can only acquire them on your turn, because to acquire a card, to acquire one of these lesson cards, takes 1 hour of your turn, as well as the additional cost in the upper right. For example, this is the lawyer card. It costs you 3 gold essentially to go to law school to now have acquired this career of being a lawyer. When you acquire cards, so you spend 1 hour and 3 gold to acquire it, there is one additional condition. You can only acquire 1 lesson a turn. You only can learn 1 new lesson a turn. So during my turn, I can choose to spend 5 hours, let's say, in my default career, and then 2 hours volunteering. With my remaining hour, I spend 3 gold in 1 hour to get this lawyer. And then I can choose, do I keep it in my hand? These are cards that are not played yet. Or do I put it into play? When I put it into play, I'm gonna have to choose between these 2 careers, because you can only have 1 career card in play. And notice it says here, if you play another career card, you must release this card to your ash pile. Okay, what does that mean, release a card to the ash pile? What that means is you'll have a little section of your cards. I keep it just to the right of my hierarchy of needs. I keep these face up. These are cards that I no longer have in play. They've been discarded. And I'll typically keep my cards in my hand that I haven't used yet here face down. Any player can look through your ash pile as much as they want. So typically I have my cards in play down here. I have my card face up, that's my ash pile, and face down here. And then these available lessons will be in the middle of the table for anyone to try to take them. So that's my typical turn. I'll spend time turning my cards sideways, spending the hours on them, and then acquiring new cards, aka learning new lessons. And here again, we have a card with multiple options, meaning you can either do one or the other. And notice this card actually costs awareness. So you need to have already saved up 3 awareness to even learn this lesson, and you spend that to learn the lesson. One last thing you can do with an hour in your turn. Let's say none of these cards in the available lessons appeals to you. You can spend 1 hour, maximum once, to remove one of the cards you least like, or maybe you don't want another player to learn that lesson, to reveal a new lesson, karate. And now, maybe that's the lesson that you will learn this turn. So if it ever feels stale, you can spend 1 hour to acquire a new available lesson. That's how lessons work. And any additional rules about lessons will be on the card. Now, one specific thing here, there's a symbol here you haven't seen yet, the +1. That means add a counter to this card. I typically represent a counter with either little counters from other games like this, or with pieces of paper, or pennies come in handy here. Whatever it is, you want to count how many times you have put a counter on this card. So with this card, you can put counters on, and then when you have put 5 counters on this card, you can remove the 5 and then use the ability to the right of it. Notice with the Priestess card, it's a similar thing. You can add counters, and then when you have 3 counters available, you can also spend 4 hours to release an event in play of another player's choice. That means you get to destroy an event in play, putting it in your ash pile. But what is an event? We haven't covered events yet. Let's talk about events. So, in the middle of the entire table, next to the lessons pile, is an events pile. The events are cards that you draw at the start of the turn. Basically, your turn goes like this. You first turn your cards straight upwards, and this rules reminds you about that. So each turn, you return used cards to the upright position, and then you roll to see if you draw an event. On a roll of a 4 or higher, not there. On a 4 or higher, not there. On a 4, oh, okay, let's assume you rolled a 4. Or there we go, a 6. You draw an event. Aha, the childbirth event. Or in this case, the flu. What does the flu do? The flu is a personal event. It affects you. And you alone? Maybe. When this card is drawn, you must play this card. You put it into play, and you choose one of the following. Either you lose 3 hours or you lose 5 hours. If you lose 5 hours, it's like you stayed at home and you beat the flu, and the flu is put into the ash pile, gone. If you choose instead to lose 3 hours this turn, you must give this card to another player you're in a relationship with. It's like you didn't quite stay home and you actually saw a friend, and now they have the flu. So this is an example of how events will mess up your turn and maybe other people's turns. Sometimes there are events that affect the entire board state. They're called current events. Current events will impact everyone. For example, festival season. This card says during each player's turn, well, at the start of the turn, if they have community complete, then they must give a guide or a practice card to the player to their left. Otherwise, they lose community. Often events will say, hey, if you don't do this thing, you might lose one of your needs, like lose community. What is a guide or a practice card? Well, let's go back to the available lessons, the lessons pile. Many of the cards are career or their practice. Most of them are practice cards. They represent practices you can be in, or their relationships. These are the card type. The whole pile is called the lesson pile, but the lessons include careers, practices, relationships, and guides. Let me find a guide card for you. Guides represent plants, animals, any type of spiritual guide. Oh, like drinking buddies. These are human guides that help you accomplish your friendship. They just cost you potentially some gold or time or immune health. Or here's an animal guide. This is your pet cat. So, what festival season is saying, hey, if you want to take part in this festival, you're going to have to lose part of your identity to the community. And you to choose a practice or a guide that used to set you apart and give that to the player to your left. So now you see that events will strongly impact the game, and you'll have to choose what type of way you want to react to these events as you navigate your hierarchy of needs. So that covers events, quests, and lessons. There are some specific interactions that we can discuss in further detail, but at this point you have all of the information that you need to play a game of Actualize This. May the road to your enlightenment be as fulfilling and fun as the macrocosm that is your life. Adios.